Hey guys, this is Rich and I'm here with Colin.
Beyond.
And we're here to analyze the amazing new Assassin's Creed 3 trailer that blew our frickin' minds this morning. First off, Colin, what do we got?
Well, when I first saw this very first scene, Rich, I was like, okay, this must be a city, Boston or New York. We know the game takes place in those places, but it's not. The terrain doesn't jive with it. It's way too rural, even by 18th century America standards. I think this is the Mohawk Village where Connor, the main character, comes from. His city is sacked, or his town is sacked. Mm-hmm. It's in the middle of New York, probably near Albany in the Mohawk Valley. So I think that's what we're looking at there.
Okay, great. And we got a good glimpse of these guys.
Yeah, so now we finally see, the British regulars. We used to call them bloody backs or lobsters, Kingsmen. These are the guys that are fighting. They're sent over from Britain to take on the colonists. And they're in their standard dress. They have, their typical weapons, probably Brown Bess rifles that were used by both sides. And they're in their standard dress. Nothing too spectacular there.
Here we see Connor, doing his usual stalking thing up in the trees. You can actually see back here, if you look down towards the bottom of this tree trunk, obvious little branches that allow you to get up into these, the new rooftops, as it were, into the branches. And then I know, Colin, you were pretty impressed with the fact that, he's just stalking this poor average guy who's just trying to serve his country.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the guy running, he has no indications that he's an officer. He doesn't have a sidearm. He's just carrying his pack. He's carrying his canteen. He dropped his weapon. He's just running away. I can only imagine how scared this guy must be. He's enlisted. He's sent over 3,000 miles away from where he's from. It's just, his fear is definitely palpable. So yeah, we see more of this. He obviously slays him with the bow and arrow. But if we stop it right here, we see obviously the Union Jack flying. This looks like Boston Harbor. You can see Old North Church there on the left side of the frame. Boston was occupied from 1775 to 1776 by the British, so that's when the flag would have been hanging there. Obviously, the war began in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts and Boston itself was considered probably the most egregious place for the British.
And then we're moving on to, this is actually something I saw a couple months ago in a demonstration, but Bunker Hill battle. But you've got actually a bunch of notes on Bunker Hill, so let's get to them bit by bit. You can obviously see the British lined up real quick here. Connor's a little more agile than ever, doing slides, that sort of thing, so the sense of momentum is even better. And then we've got him here hanging up a guy by his new sort of rope dart thing, which allows him to attack aerially and then also sort of slide down to the ground to confront guys on the ground. One more thing about Wilderness, of course, which is one of my favorite parts, a big giant bear. More sort of, indicating sort of a sense of not only the currency, which deals with hunting in the game, but then also the fact that you're not just dealing with trees, you're dealing with the wildlife as well.
Right. I mean, the colonists, the colonies rather, were so sparsely populated, about only less than 3 million people in the colonies at the time of the American Revolution. You're going to run into bears a lot. You can go from, as the old saying goes, from tree to tree, from Atlantic to Pacific, never touch the ground. It's going to make sense that you're going to run into a lot of bad things in the wilderness.
All right. So then right as soon as we get past the bear here, we're going to be looking at Bunker Hill again. And Connor's actually going to be meeting with someone, and you have a theory about this.
Yeah, I think it's probably Israel Putnam. Now, I'm not positive. Obviously, a lot of guys wore wigs then. We only have paintings of these guys. We don't have photographs.
Sure.
His dress indicates that he's an officer, but probably a lower-ranking officer, which might not jive with it being Israel Putnam. But Putnam was instrumental at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and we know he's in the game. So I think that's probably him. But here's where things kind of fall apart for me a little bit. Because we're still at Bunker Hill. Yep. Bunker Hill happened, obviously, in 1775, very early battle. But we see colonists dressed in, the Continentals dressed in blue coats. That just wouldn't have been the case. These guys were farmers. They were militiamen. They were called from all over New England. They didn't have uniforms, and they didn't have uniforms until the French really got involved in the war in 1777, 1778. So that is historically inaccurate, Rich.
I mean, you and I were talking about how it's probably just to help the player understand who's who and get things straight, but good to know that Ubisoft isn't quite keeping accurate. And then you had something to say about this shot here too, right?
Yeah, even though we're on a hill, here, we have to keep in mind that the muskets that the British were using and the Americans were using and anyone that were using in the 1770s were wildly inaccurate. Mm-hmm. Typically, you wouldn't see salvos like this. The guys shooting in the back towards the high end of the hill would have killed the guys in front of them probably if they were shooting. So that also is a little weird. Plus, they would not have wasted their bullets shooting that far off. Bullets were obviously not uncommon, but quite expensive even then.
And obviously, we're showing some more gameplay here. The idea of hostage taking, not only being able to wield these guys against each other, but you can execute guys close up like that. Some newer kind of gameplay elements. Seems like Connor has a little more fluidity, both in terms of I mentioned movement earlier, but then in terms of combat, you see these more dynamic abilities to kill guys, movement through buildings, being able to jump through windows, vault over, obstacles. again, just repeated examples of this. Looks like horses are back here, taking 2 guys out quickly.
Right, and it's brutal. And what I really like too about all these city scenes is that I think we're seeing a lot of the Union Jack. Earlier we saw the Betsy Ross flag kind of shine, which indicates that this is taking place 1775, 1776, 1777. A lot of this fighting is probably happening in Boston because I couldn't imagine New York, which was occupied by loyalists for the entirety of the war, where this kind of combat would have been allowed to have happened. But in Boston, with the occupying soldiers, this probably would have been encouraged. Yeah, so there's a lot of focus on this guy. Now, I'm not sure who exactly this is. I'm wondering if this is Lord Howe. I'm wondering if this is Cornwallis. It really depends on where in the war we are now. If this takes place between New York and Boston, it's early in the Revolution, and so all indications say that this might be Lord Howe, but who knows?
Okay, very cool. Anything else, Colin?
No, other than some historical inaccuracies, I'm super excited that they've taken my favorite period in all of history and are making a game like this out of it, Rich.
Yeah, for sure. Again, this is probably my favorite shot of both the demo and the trailer. Is just the fact that, before when you did a hidden blade kill, you sort of had to stop and do it. Not anymore. Just carries him right through. Poor guy. Dead.
And I like how this soldier back here with the covered face is just standing there.
Yeah, they're just
not
like,
even trying to do anything.
What do we do? And that guy has seen better days. So that's about it. Incredible new trailer. Stay tuned to IGN.com for more on Assassin's Creed 3. E3 is coming right up.
I know, beyond.
Yeah.